Hello there guys, it's Marky and welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledPeople. Now, I know you love your homeowners associations, so they're getting a special shout out in the first story today. Now, if you guys love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and get ready for some good stories. Let's go. Dear Sir, please remove your fence. So while retrieving my mail shortly after moving into my new home, there was a flyer attached to the mailbox post. I read the flyer with interest, finding that it was from the neighbor who purchased the model home at the entrance of our subdivision. The flyer was addressed to all members of the Homeowners Association and essentially informed us that the HOA was using our HOA dues to sue him for not removing a fence from his front yard. The builder erected the chestnut rail fence around the front yard of the model home when it was built, and the purchaser never thought anything about it. A contingent of HOA officers notified him that he had 24 hours to remove the fence or face a lawsuit. Having already faced the wrath of the HOA myself, I stopped at his home to talk with him. After ascertaining the preceding information, I informed him that anything existing on the closing date of the real estate transfer was grandfathered in, and therefore the fence was legal. I then proceeded to show this to him in the covenants. At the time, I was an editor with a local newspaper and asked if he minded me writing an article about this incident in the newspaper. He readily agreed, and I went off to discuss it with the managing editor. Between us, we decided to run a series of articles about HOAs and the little Hitlers who run them, highlighting this incident. The series ran 7 weeks on the editorial page, during which time the court case was held, and the homeowner won, with the HOA having to pay his legal expenses. He told me that had they asked, he would have removed the fence with no problem, but he was a retired colonel in the US Army and was not used to being ordered to do things. 36 years later, the fence is still there. Now in the comments, Ramen Noodles says, "It's always nice when HOAs get their BS thrown back at them. Unfortunate they used the money from other people for their crap though. I find it funny that they are titled HOA officers and like to go around as a contingent. I'm just picturing the Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka, although those guys were actually kinda scary." HOAs blow, probably 90% of the time. It only takes one little Hitler to derail the efforts of the well-intentioned folks who just want to keep their neighborhoods nice. And nobody serves on an HOA because they like to leave people alone. However, HOAs do help in identifying people who should never have even a quantum of power over others. If you see the phrase, "served in a neighborhood HOA" in a candidate's bio, vote for the other candidate no matter who it is. Assuming the other candidate didn't serve in an HOA too. Our next post is by user Tignia, titled, "Aide Doesn't Do Her Job." This happened a few months ago while I was at work, so there are some details that I don't remember. I work at a pretty well-known store where you can build your own bears, and today was a quiet weekday. Not too many people coming in. At the point of this situation, there was no one else in the store but the employees, when 2 elderly women in wheelchairs, one in a push and the other motor, come in with a nurse aide. It was an older woman, W, and her mother, M, who were looking to get a bear today. The nurse aide was not really paying any attention, just pushing W around, not even exactly where she wanted to go by her comments. Myself and my fellow employee were trying to help the 3 ladies the best we could to pick out their bears, and at one point, the aide told W to get up from her wheelchair. So she got up, grabbing her bags and cane, while the aide went right outside with a wheelchair. We continued to help the 2 ladies and picked out a bear. After about 5 minutes of the aide still outside, W was beginning to show signs of struggling and said she was in pain after not long. I asked if she needed her wheelchair, and she said she did. So I went to the aide who was just sitting in the wheelchair on her phone. I told her that W was in pain and needed her wheelchair. She just rolled her eyes and followed us inside, where she gave W the wheelchair back, but continued to mess around on her phone, even occasionally saying rude words to both W and M now. My fellow employee and I were getting uncomfortable with the situation as we made their bears, and they went to look at different outfits. the aide just following along as W pushed the wheelchair forward with her feet. Everything else went by the same as they checked out, the aide either not paying attention on her phone or belittling W and M. I don't remember any comments, unfortunately. I'd share if I did. But I was able to weasel information out of the aide as to where she was hired from. They left just fine, and when I got home, I reported her with the information that I was able to get. I pretended I was in nursing school soon to graduate, and asked where she worked. And although I never heard back, I do hope W and M were able to get a better nurse aide. Our next post is by user, couldn't tell ya, they deleted their account. Titled, Entitled Karen wants bikini-wearing girls to cover at the beach during a heatwave. Epic ending. This happened this summer prior to the COVID-19 crisis. I live in a small beach town and was at the beach with my brother and our friends. Keeping anonymity, I'll rename the ones mentioned. So Kyle is my brother, Josh is my brother's friend, and Luna is Josh's girlfriend. While Kyle and Josh were surfing, Luna and I were sunbathing on the beach. It was hot and about 100 degrees, so we were in bikinis. We were talking about the usual stuff when I noticed some teenager, who looked like he was 15 or 16, watching us. Luna and I ignored him, but only until he started getting closer and closer to us. Luna is short, but she's incredibly muscular from working out hours every day, so she seems intimidating to a lot of people. Anyway, when the guy was too close for comfort, arm's distance away from Luna and I asked if there was something he wanted from us, because he'd been watching us for at least 15 minutes. The guy never looked at my face, just my chest. Like, yeah, I was in a bikini, but I was covered. The guy's mum, our Karen of the story, came over to Luna and I at this point, then asked if we could cover up. Luna looked at Karen with a "really?" expression, and Karen had that entitled face and said, "It's only fair. You're distracting my son, and I'm afraid that you'll seduce him with your tramp wear." Luna and I looked at each other and just burst out laughing. I know it was kind of rude, but when would you hear "cover up" at the beach during a heat wave? Kyle and Josh came back to us, and Josh asked if everything was okay. Karen pitched a fit that Luna and I were seductive and flashing her son, and I said, "Only in your son's dreams, lady. We were not flashing your son." Karen looked like she was gonna slap Luna, so Josh stepped between them to keep them apart. Kyle saw a patrolling cop on the boardwalk and waved him down. The police officer had red hair like my brother and me. He waved to Kyle and me, then came over and asked if everything was alright, and if there was a problem. Karen looked smug and said, "These tramps were trying to seduce my baby boy. Arrest them for exposing themselves to a minor." The police officer just looked from Kyle and me back to Karen. What he said next was epic, to me anyway. He said, "Lady, my cousin is not a tramp, your son isn't a baby, and if you had any brains at all, you would teach your son to respect women and not see them as scantily clad objects during a heat wave. By the way, do you see the ocean? We're at a beach. My cousin can wear anything she likes." Karen's jaw dropped, then she pulled him away while Kyle, me, Josh, and Luna were just grinning. I didn't just soak up the sun, I basked in the awesomeness of my police officer cousin. Now in the comments, Wise Question 9838 says, "It's actually really creepy how the child was staring at you for so long. What the F is his mother teaching him?" That's not a child. A child is under 10. That's a teenager and a straight up near adult. Imagine that going into the dating world and just, staring at you from across the table. Creepy people at the beach are the absolute worst, man. A few years ago, I went with a group on a very hot day. It was packed, and I noticed this kid solo in his early 20s staring at us a few spots away. We moved because we were so uncomfortable. Immediately after, he packed up and followed us to his new spot with that creepy frickin' look on his face. I was so angry that I almost walked over and punched him in the face, but my cousin confronted him first and asked why he was following us. He stammered and said he wasn't, and we told him to F off, and he quickly packed his things and left. I don't get it. If you don't check your perv sons young, they'll grow up to be moving targets. I promise you that. Our next post is by user CR Spitfire, titled, I served the worst table ever at Olive Garden. So first off, it's 9:45. We close at 10 PM. This table of 3 walks in and I get sat. I greet them, things start as usual. I'm just upset they came in so late, but whatever. They end up wanting a tour of Italy, which comes with fettuccine alfredo, lasagna, and chicken parmigiano. We had been out of lasagna since 8 PM, so I asked her if she wanted to substitute it for something. She mumbled that she should get it for free since we were out, but she subbed it for something else. About 30 minutes passed and I'd already brought their food out and such. She wanted to try all of our soups as she'd also bought the soup salad bundle. We have 4 soups, which are minestrone, chicken and gnocchi, pasta fagioli, and zuppa toscana. The last soup she hadn't tried was the minestrone, but we were completely out. I told her, and she got very upset. At the end, she asked for extra Alfredo sauce to take home, and I told her we didn't have any more Alfredo. This was now 40 minutes past closing. She freaked out and demanded to talk to my manager. I got him, laughing with him about her behavior, and he went to talk to her. She flipped crap, going off about how we shouldn't be open this late if we can't offer full service. Excuse me? We aren't open. We closed 40 minutes ago. She went on about how a meal should be free because we were out of everything, and how we handed her a full menu but we didn't have it all. My manager didn't give her a single free thing off her ticket because he realized how entitled she was sounding. When I walked over at the end to hand her change back, I heard her mumbling about the crappy service, and prior to that, she had said, "Guess we shouldn't come here again before closing." Good. Please don't ever come back. And edit, oh, did I mention this inconsiderate person didn't tip? Yeah, they made me stay an hour past closing for nothing. Now in the comments, Panam 2020 says, I don't understand how places serve people with more than a drink coming in that late. You're open until 10, but that should just be to close down people who have been there since 9. And OP replies, unfortunately, it's our policy that if they enter the door before closing, we have to serve them. That's why I like how some bars only serve appetizers after a certain time of night. If only restaurants offered closing menus. Food only available in that last hour, so waitstaff aren't held hostage by inconsiderate people. And our next post is by user Not a Robot, Deaf a Cyborg, titled, Susan the Snack Stealer. So I used to work with a super entitled woman once upon a time. Her name was Susan. Susan liked to get to the office earlier than everyone else, but I didn't find out why that was until I'd worked there for a few months. She was the sort who liked to help herself to the snacks that people had in the communal fridge. She'd also take individual sodas from the case my cubicle neighbor kept under her desk, and had a real thing for stealing either my chocolate or my good granola bars, depending on what I had stashed, right out of my desk drawer. She got her comeuppance one year at the office Christmas potluck. We had a lady who did Greek cooking and was magnificent at it. This particular year, she'd brought in an enormous tray of mini spanakopita, the spinach and feta cheese in phyllo dough, each roughly the size of an Oreo cookie. Literally hundreds of these little beauties stacked too high on the tray, just waiting to be devoured. And then along came Susan, with the Tupperware of holding. I crap you not, she scooped fully 1/4 of the contents of that tray into her Tupperware, looking around furtively to make sure no one would try to stop her. She brushed the phyllo crumbs from her fingers, popped the seal on her Y-sized Tupperware, and turned smugly away from the buffet table. And every single person in the office was glaring at her, fit to set her permanently ablaze. Our office manager was particularly salty because she, dear reader, was the Greek chef who had provided these delicious morsels. She spoke, and it was with the voice of a vengeful goddess. Susan, what in the hell do you think you are doing? Crickets. And then foot tapping began. Tap, tap, tap. And the hand on the hip. And finally, the finger of doom did aim at Susan, thief of treats, hoarder of spanakopita, and Susan did meekly open her Tupperware Y-ball and return onto the tray roughly 90% of the pita. Thus was the office manager appeased, and thus was Susan forever sneak-shamed. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you did like it, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below, and make sure to just interact with everyone in this community. I love each and every one of you that I get to see on a daily basis. And don't forget, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I love you. You're on the screen right now with the YouTube members as well. If you see yourself, give yourself a pat in the back. You guys help me continue this YouTube journey. You keep me going. I see you guys everywhere. I see your messages, and thank you so much for supporting me. I really love every single one of you. But with that all said, I'm going to be signing off now, guys. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.